Hello everyone. Today we are going to explore one of the most fascinating topics in linguistics, how the world's languages are classified. Curious, human beings speak more than 7,000 languages, and although they may seem incredibly different, linguists have developed ways to group them and understand the patterns behind them. In this presentation, we will look at languages from two important perspectives. First, we will see how languages can be connected through their historical origins. Second, we will focus on how languages are built structurally, especially how they form words and express meaning. By the end of this lesson, you will see that linguistic diversity is not random. Thoughtful, it reflects deep principles of human communication and creativity. To understand the world's languages, linguists usually use two major frameworks. The first is genealogical classification. Curious. This approach asks a historical question: where did a language come from and what other languages is it related to? The second is typological classification. This approach is different. Instead of focusing on history, it examines structure. It asks how a language is built and how it organizes grammar and meaning. These two approaches complement each other. One helps us trace the family history of languages, and the other helps us compare their internal design. Thoughtful. Together, they give us a much richer understanding of language as both a historical and structural phenomenon. Let us begin with genealogical classification. In this model, languages are grouped according to shared ancestry, just like members of a family tree. Over time, languages change, spread, and branch off into new forms, often because of migration, contact, and social change. Curious, a well-known example is the Indo-European family. Languages such as English, Spanish, Hindi, and Russian belong to this family because they all developed from a common proto-language spoken thousands of years ago. Another important family is Sino-Tibetan, which includes Mandarin, Tibetan, and Burmese. Thoughtful, so genealogical classification helps us understand how languages are historically connected. It shows that many modern languages, even if they sound very different today, may actually share ancient roots. Now, let us move to typological classification, especially morphological typology. Here, the main question is not about ancestry, but about structure. Linguists ask, curious, how are words constructed? To answer this, they study morphemes, the smallest meaningful units in language. A word may contain one morpheme or many morphemes, depending on the language. This matters because word structure affects grammar, meaning, and the way people communicate ideas. Some languages keep words short and simple, while others build long and complex word forms. Thoughtful. In other words, morphology helps us see how different languages package information. This approach allows us to compare languages that may not be historically related but may still share similar structural features. When we look at morphology, we discover that languages exist on a spectrum of synthesis. Curious. This means that some languages tend to use very simple word forms, while others build extremely complex words containing a great deal of grammatical information. At one end of the spectrum, words may be minimal, with each word carrying just one basic meaning. At the other end, a single word may express what would be an entire sentence in another language. Thoughtful. So, rather than seeing languages as all working in the same way, we begin to understand that they differ in the amount of structure packed into each word. This spectrum of synthesis is one of the most useful ways to compare languages typologically. One major type is the isolating language. In isolating languages, words usually contain very few morphemes, often only one. That means each word tends to stand alone as an independent unit. Curious, grammatical relationships are shown not by changing the word itself, but by word order and by the use of separate helper words. Mandarin Chinese and Vietnamese are leading examples of this type. For instance, in a simple sentence like "I go to the shop," each word remains separate. There are no extra endings attached to show tense, case, or number in the way many other languages do. Thoughtful, because of this, sentence structure becomes especially important. In isolating languages, order plays a central role in expressing grammar. In contrast, synthetic languages combine several morphemes into a single word. This means that one word can carry rich grammatical information within itself. Curious, instead of depending mainly on word order, these languages often encode meaning directly in word forms. Synthetic languages can be divided into three major subtypes. The first is agglutinative, where morphemes are added in a clear and orderly way, each with its own function. The second is fusional, where endings often combine several meanings at once. The third is polysynthetic, where a single word may represent the meaning of a whole sentence. Thoughtful. So, synthetic languages show us how grammar can be built into words themselves, creating more compact and information-rich forms of expression. Let us now look at agglutinative languages. In these languages, morphemes are attached one after another in a very clear and regular way. Each morpheme usually has one specific grammatical function. Curious. This is why the presentation compares them to Lego bricks. Every piece is separate, visible, and meaningful. A good example comes from Turkish. The word evlerimde can be broken down into ev meaning house, ler meaning plural, im meaning my, and de meaning in. Together, the whole word means in my houses. This shows how several simple units can join together to form one complex word. Thoughtful. Other well-known agglutinative languages include Finnish, Hungarian, Swahili, and Japanese. Their structure is transparent, systematic, and highly organized. Another subtype is the fusional language. Here, morphemes are not as clearly separated as in agglutinative languages. Instead, one ending may express several grammatical meanings at the same time. Curious, this is why the slide compares fusional morphology to a multitool. One part performs several jobs at once. The presentation gives an example from Latin. The form servus means the servant in the nominative singular. Another form, servi, can have more than one grammatical interpretation, such as genitive singular or nominative plural. And servo may express dative or ablative singular. So in fusional languages, endings are multifunctional. Thoughtful, they do not always correspond to one single meaning. This makes the system rich, but sometimes less transparent than agglutinative structure. At the far end of the synthetic spectrum, we find polysynthetic languages. These are among the most structurally complex languages in the world. Curious. In polysynthetic languages, one word can express the meaning of an entire sentence. Often, nouns are incorporated directly into the verb, creating very long and information-dense word forms. The example in the presentation comes from Central Alaskan Yupik. One single word is analyzed into several parts, meaning reindeer, hunt, future, say negation again, and third person singular. Altogether, it means he had not yet said again that he was going to hunt reindeer. Impressed. This example demonstrates the extraordinary expressive power of morphology. It reminds us that what requires many words in one language may be compressed into a single word in another. However, languages do not always fit perfectly into neat categories. Thoughtful. This is a very important point. Linguistic classification is useful, but real languages are often more flexible and mixed than our labels suggest. A language may show features of more than one typological type at the same time. That is why linguists must be careful not to treat these categories as rigid boxes. The value of typology lies not in forcing every language into a strict model, but in helping us notice patterns, tendencies, and structural differences. Curious. In fact, the complexity and unpredictability of real languages are part of what makes linguistics so interesting. Languages are living systems, and living systems rarely behave in completely simple or fixed ways. In conclusion, typological classification should be understood as a continuum rather than a set of absolute categories. Most languages contain a mixture of features, and their position on the spectrum may be gradual rather than sharp. Thoughtful modern linguistics therefore views isolating, agglutinative, fusional, and polysynthetic types as useful reference points, not as strict and final boxes. Studying typology helps us appreciate the immense diversity of human language and the creativity with which different communities organize meaning. Sincere. It shows us that every language offers its own solution to the same human need to communicate thoughts, experiences, and relationships. Thank you for your attention. Hopeful. I hope this journey through language typology has helped you better understand the richness and beauty of the world's languages.